All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's been quite a while. It's good to be back, though. Let's see here. So this is my first time streaming on this install of the computer. So I am looking at all my settings and making sure things are correct. I believe we are. It looks like everything is configured properly. I'm not going to stream any music because I don't want to get DMCA'd. Looks like the scenes are good. So I saved everything in a Git repo, and that ended up being a really good idea. So I'm glad I did that. But let's see here. So Twitch seems to be working. The PC output is muted. The scenes are working. This is all good to go. Yeah, so this will be fun. I've got pretty much a fresh install here. I basically installed like kind of the basic tools I needed for things like Go, Git, etc. But actually, shoot, I just realized I don't have a way of turning my light on, I don't think. I could go through Home Assistant, but it's more fun to do the Go program. So, all right, let's get that going really quick. There we go. So if we go to my Keylight program, we can, is this all working? Yeah, it is. Okay. Yep, so I can go ahead and copy this. So I worked on this a while ago, and this will let me control the light here at my desk, actually, which is pretty funny. So I think that roughly that will work. Although maybe I have to use the go install syntax now. I'm not actually sure. But let's find out. Did that work? Yes, it did. Hey, the light turned on. Sweet. So it still works as expected. All right, let's turn it to 50%. No, it's pretty bright. Cool. the things you forget about when you set up a computer. So hey, have I done a stream from my house yet? I'm not actually sure. So I bought a house like 7 or 8 months ago, and it's fun. It's a lot of work. It's fun though. But so I had to do some chores today. So I was out back for quite a while to deal with some leaves I had let sit. Keylight and obvious dependency of Netlink. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I probably just added it to my Go mod, didn't I? Yeah, I don't want that. So let's go ahead and reset. That's fine. But I got it working again, so I think we're good to go. Yeah, let's see here. So I think I have everything. This is all working okay. It's like I said, it's been like 8 months since I've streamed, so I have no idea. But I think we're good to go. Boo chores, yeah, for sure. Pain in the neck, but what are you gonna do? Yeah, cool. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in the Netlink package or the kernel interface for quite a while. So something I wanted to check out today is, let's see here, what's it called? So Netlink policy, Stack Overflow. Yeah, here we go. So basically what happened is in 2019, we've been working on this library since 2016. So when I first authored this did not exist. But now, the kernel for a while has had the concept of netlink policy. So for example, when you're passing attributes and such, you can actually validate them according to rules that you set in the kernel. But this was not exposed to user space for quite a while. But now we actually have a way of doing this. So effectively, for example, for NL 802.11, you have this attribute here. The type equals a null terminated string. The maximum length is 15. This is probably the interface name because it's going to be max of IF name size. So basically, we can take this sort of data and produce really good error messages. So it's been kind of a known problem for a long time that with netlink sockets especially, if you pass some malformed attribute, it'll say, nope, e-inval, and the whole thing is gone. So the situation has improved a bit over the years. Basically, you can do things like setting up strict check, which will give you more checking, and then the extended acknowledgement option. So that e-inval may suddenly become, if using my library, might become like, yeah, this attribute has a minimum length of this or whatever else, or this attribute must be exactly this many bytes in size. But with this, we can expose even better error messages. So for example, if somebody leaves a string empty, we can say, we expect a null terminated string up to 15 bytes in length. So that'll be pretty cool. So that's definitely something I want to look at exposing to user space now that this is available. Hey, nice that you're back. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's been a while, like I said. Definitely, I think honestly kind of maybe burn out a little bit on just open source programming and stuff in general. But yeah, I'm going to be taking a new job starting in late January, but now I've got about 6 weeks off, and it's going to be really nice. So basically my plan is to, do chores. His backyard looking good though. Yeah, exactly. My plan is to, kind of do chores, work out, and just kind of do what I want to do. And I really do like streaming. It's hard to find time when you are working a full-time job. It's really hard to want to stream on weeknights and such. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So new home office. Yeah. So I think I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but I moved into a house 7 or 8 months ago, and I think I may have done maybe one stream from the house. I'm not actually sure if I did or not, honestly. But it's been a while. Hey, what's up, Night of Dilemma Math? Real MD layer stream, Pog. Yeah, welcome back. Good to see you here. I know, I apologize, everyone. It's been quite a while. It's good to be back. I'm excited, but I needed some time, So, but I'm hoping we can do some cool stuff. I really would like to get back to this on a regular basis. Here's hoping we can do it. Hey, Night of Dolomrath. Thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate that. Welcome back. Again, subs never necessary, but much appreciated. That's very cool. Very generous of you. Thank you. So, kind of the state of where we're at today with the Netlink package. I believe that one of the last things I did previously on stream, I was talking about a few minutes ago, the extended acknowledgements. So, make this a little smaller. I reinstalled my PC, so everything's just not quite right. If we go to messages, yeah, so basically, if you pass the extended acknowledgement flag, the header can optionally indicate these acknowledgement TLVs. Basically, we figure out where they are, we start decoding them, and this gives you things like the error message from the kernel, as well as the offset of the attribute where this occurred. So this is very useful. So I kind of have a couple different ideas here. So for one, I want to continue to extend this with the Netlink policy so that if you specify an attribute that is not the correct length or similar, it will actually complain and give you a good error message. That's one thing I want to do. But for a second thing, I find myself starting to wonder if I should turn on the strict check and extended acknowledgement options by default. So basically make an attempt to do it. If it returns an error, it becomes a no-op. Like basically if your kernel doesn't support it, we don't bother it. We don't bother trying, but this is something that I think would be pretty useful actually by default, because people talk to me all the time and they say like, hey, how do you get better error messages out of Netlink? And it turns out, yeah, you just have to set the socket option. So maybe something we could do is add like a strict mode or something where it will give you better error messages and be more strict about what it accepts, but we can't probably set it by default, unfortunately. But I know in my projects, like I tend to enable it by default. So if we go to the ETH-Tool Netlink project, have I not cloned it on this machine yet? I have not. GitHub, MD layer, ETH-Tool. Yep. So this one, consider the sub and active honoring the craft there. Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It does mean a lot. I certainly, I didn't take a break from streaming because like I didn't like doing it. It's just I had other priorities and stuff. But it makes me really happy that you all enjoy it so much. So thank you so much. So you'll see here actually in the generic Netlink client I have here, the library that I'm wrapping with for ETH-Tool Netlink, I actually turn on the extended acknowledgement by default, and I could probably also set strict check here. That seems like a pretty good idea. So I think it might be time just to add an option to the Netlink configuration to do this by default, or at least like opt into it. Full-time streamer is a new gig? No, definitely not. Yeah, I've got a house now. I've got a mortgage. I've got some priorities, trying to save for retirement stuff. So I don't think you could just jump in and then say I'm a full-time streamer and make enough money. Yeah, I wish though. Open source is definitely something that's important for me. So hoping the new gig, I'll have an opportunity to do some open source as well. I know that there are kind of a mixture of things going on there, but maybe I can work it out that if I'm doing open source work like on Fridays or something, I could, stream for a little bit and kind of get like a back-to-back, MD layer, large data bank sort of thing going on. That'd be pretty cool. That would be a lot of fun. Have you already talked about your new gig? No. So I've accepted an offer. I'm not sharing things publicly yet because it's still it's a long ways away. But yeah, it's something I'm excited about. It's not something I necessarily expected to find myself involved with, but I am really excited. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and gonna be working with some folks I really respect in the industry. So that's really exciting. But no, I'm not sharing. I'm not sharing at this point. Just don't want to be that weird guy who shares a job like months before, like a month and a half before he starts or something. I don't know. Feels strange to me. So more news, Pog. So maybe probably a good thing to do would be to start with this option we were just talking about. So like we could add this option to add better error handling and such. So, or better better defaults. So if we go to the con type again, we have the configuration. Oh, by the way, so this is some interesting news. Some people may have seen my tweets as well. I've been considering starting a V2 of the Netlink library, basically kind of like trying to fix up some of the mistakes I made in the original library. As well as taking advantage of generics. So that is something I would really like to do. It is likely that we will start working on that. I don't know, maybe definitely by the time Go 118 comes out, but maybe we'll start playing with that in the next few weeks as well. So let's see here. I think roughly what we want is we want some kind of new option that is going to enable better defaults. So turning on strict check, turning on extended acknowledge. If we have this policy thing and it ends up being somewhat expensive, we may turn that on as well. I guess we'll see. So, kind of the first thing that comes to mind here would be something called strict. Is this going to be, strict would imply the strict check option, but does that really imply extended acknowledgements? I'm not really sure. So strict, or, maybe, honestly, maybe a better bet would be to, I suppose I could have something like options, array of con option, and then I will apply these unconditionally, based on what you specify. So, for example, a set of good defaults would be the extended acknowledgement as well as the strict check. What kind of benefits use case do you see for generics and Netlink? Yeah, so for those who have been around for a while, if you look at the attribute decoder type, we have methods for, let's see here, bytes, string, uint8, uint16, uint32, uint64, int8, int16, int32. I think you can see where I'm going with this. So I think that roughly what I want is something that's going to look like, AD, attribute decoder, unpack. You can't have, wait a sec, you can't have type parameters on methods, can you? I'm gonna need to look back into this, but roughly something like an unpack T, or being able to decode a certain set of attributes and then it'll return an error or something. I think this could be pretty useful, so that's something we're gonna need to figure out. Nope, not on methods. Yeah, shoot. Well, that definitely deflates me a little bit, deflates that idea, but perhaps we can come up with something clever, because you can do something funny. Let's see, I posted something on Twitter a while back, twitter.com, mdlayer. I was screwing around with generics, attribute decoder T. Yeah, but the problem is with creating individual, individual attribute decoder T's is that you're never going to have just one type. You're going to have lots of different types, right? So I'm not sure if that works or not. I am not signing into Twitter because this is a guest browser because I remember to do that. Some funny stuff in here. Doesn't matter. Oh, shoot. I did not want to do that. I'm off my game. Sorry, everybody. Guest. Oh, now I gotta sign back into GitHub and stuff. That's great. But so what I was looking for is I was playing with unsafe and generics a little bit ago, and I managed to create kind of a wrapping unsafe to create a function that could transmute two types that have an identical memory layout. And it's not that hard. That's something I can see potentially being useful. I'm gonna go ahead and sign back into GitHub here really quick. Just got to get my creds out and everything. Good old LastPass, security key, all this stuff. Thanks. Anyway, don't let me do that again. But so I think probably I need to do some research on generics. It would probably be good for us all to do that together, I suppose. That could be a good learning opportunity. But in the meantime, today we're going to start with something less difficult, I suppose. So if I go back to my con type here, yeah. So kind of what I want is the ability to specify options that you can apply on startup, but perhaps if they're not compatible, then they become a best effort thing. I don't know. Basically, what I want to do is create some sort of option that exposes the... Let's just go back to ethtool, I suppose, for now. I can show exactly what I mean. I did this in some code for work fairly recently. For range netlink con option, extended acknowledge, and netlink to get strict check. We can just go ahead and even commit this. So basically we want to apply. This is kind of gross with the formatting. So I had at one point I had what do you call it? I had an extension for VS Code that would reflow text if you press Alt-Q. I do not remember what it's called, and it's driving me crazy. So if anybody knows an extension like that, let me know. Function decode T, attribute decoder T. Yeah, maybe. I guess I'd have to play with it some more, but yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know. So basically what I want to do is I want to make it so that you can do this, but if either of these returns an no proto opt, then perhaps we, just best effort do this, right? So error not equals nil, and not errors is error, what's it called? OS error permission? No. Unix.e no proto. There we go. Apply. Let's see. Options on a best effort basis. Quality of life improvement. Options on a best effort basis when the kernel is new enough to support those options. Yeah, so I think that basically I would like to make it so that my Netlink types do effectively this by default. I'm not sure. The problem is I don't know. I know there are probably people running this on really old kernels, and I'm not sure how that would work. And on top of that, I can't think, perhaps there's a time where you don't want these, especially the strict check thing. So the reason strict check exists is because the route Netlink APIs back in the day, you could basically pass an if info message header to all of the different all the different types within route Netlink. So not only interface information, but also addresses and neighbors and all these things. So basically you could pass the wrong header, but it would just work anyway. So if you enable strict check, then suddenly it verifies that instead of passing an if info message, you're passing a route message or an address message or similar. So it's a good validation sort of thing. And there is still plenty of code out there, that in userspace, Linux, the rule is don't break userspace. So they're stuck with it. But you can turn on the socket option in new programs and make it so that you are following the rules and you can get better functionality out of it. So, for example, by turning on strict check, you can actually specify things like the routing table you want to dump, and you can dump a single routing table from the kernel instead of dumping all of the routing tables and filtering in user space, because you're able to pass exactly the message the kernel expects. So it's hugely advantageous, but I don't know if we can do it by default. So I think if nothing else, maybe I want to provide an ability to turn these things on, but I don't think I can do it by default, unfortunately. But yeah, so this is something I kind of want in my ETH tool package anyway. So I suppose, let's see here. So if we run the tests, I have no idea if this test even, does this even touch the kernel? No. Do the ETH tool operations require, do I have integration tests for this? Probably. It's been a little bit. A lot of these are NL tests, shims. I could have sworn I had an integration test. Link modes Linux, client Linux, bitset Linux. What the heck? Huh. Go is known for going for correctness. You could tell your users to shove it. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, I just want to, I want to do what I can to make it so that things are just more correct by default. How do I not have an integration? I'm shocked, actually. Are all of the ETH tool operations privileged? No, there's no way. All right, well, I guess we're on a bit of a tangent here, but we're gonna go ahead and write an integration test for this because I want to verify that the socket options are actually legitimate for this type. So, tooling, make link modes. I'm really surprised. I feel like I've been doing this for long enough where I would actually have a better test for this. I pulled the latest version, right? Oh, I froze my terminal. Shoot, what's the Alt-S? No, Alt-Q. What is the command? I know there's some kind of you press Control. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I think I pressed Control S instead of something. That was something that's been messing me up on Linux for 10 years, no joke. Control Q, yeah. Thanks, Jay. it took me way too long to learn about that. Hi from Switzerland. Hello from Michigan. Thanks for coming. You can turn those off? Really? Okay, I should do that. This is a new install, so there's probably lots of things that are wrong, but I definitely should do that. So client, Linux, integration, test.go. So package eth tool test. We do the build tag for just Linux. So func test integration. Do I have any way of like iterating the device's link infos? Yeah. So that's basically what I want. I just want to dump all the interface information and just kind of verify that things work as expected. You know, there's nothing. The thing is with the eth tool interface is that you need a fancy NIC to use a lot of these features. So I kind of have to go for the lowest common denominator. So link infos is a good one for sure. Of course, in the year or so since I started this library, it's possible the kernel supports new options, but let's see here. So link test integration, client, link infos, t testing t. eth tool new. Failed to open client. Defer C close. Link modes? No, link stats, link infos, LIs. C link infos. Do I pass context? No. I've never supported context in Netlink stuff because there's no like network IO and you can't cancel. I guess that's an interesting question. I suppose you could potentially cancel like a multi-part dump if I were to support context, but I'm not sure. What are you using to insert code snippets? Yeah, so I have like just a set of snippets for VS Code I have been carrying around for quite a while. Settings, let's see here, user snippets. A couple of these are built in and some of these are my own special things. So for example, I have error t fatal f. I use this all the time. Error log fatal f, error panic f, diff t fatal f. These are kind of like my little preferences. I should share these though. I could post like a GitHub gist or something if you like. Let's do that. Why not? In fact, I may have gisted that before. Really quick. I don't think I have anything privately shared in a gist, but just one sec. Let's find out before I share with you all. Oh, hey, I actually did share I shared my VS Code snippets 6 months ago. That's funny. Going back to this, yeah. So it looks like I don't think anything has changed since then. So here's the file actually. It's possible maybe my coworkers had asked me for these. So yeah, these are the ones I use. It's worth noting. So for example, VS Code Go has a built-in table-driven test function. I like mine better. It's just personal preference. Control S and Control Q send sig stop and sig continue respectively, so they can be useful for pausing and resuming processes. Interesting. Huh. I had no idea. So of course I know about Control C. I know about Control C for interrupt. I know about Control / for quit. So Control / for those of you who are writing Go, which I assume is most of my audience. If you're ever running a program and it's hung, you can run Control / and it will kill the program with sig quit. So sig quit will also cause the program to dump all of the Go routine stacks. So if something is hung up, you can look at it that way, which is nice. I've actually never encountered a use of stop and continue in my own code. Dominic says, isn't it Control Z that sends sig stop? Control S and Control Q are flow control. They don't send signals. I'm actually not sure. This is all new to me. So, but the cool thing about Twitch streaming is that, I do stuff in a silly way and then people show me, some of the things that I messed up, which is fun. Right. Moving on. First time chat. Welcome. You've done Control Z background to send a process to the background before. Yeah. To send process in the background before. Yeah, I know that like Bash has like support for like backgrounding processes and such. I actually never really got good at it, so I use tmux splits. I just easier to deal with that way. It's kind of funny, using Linux for 12 years now, and there's lots of things I just don't really do. Failed to fetch link infos, and then let's just go ahead and iterate these probably. Li dot. What does this even print? Let's find out. So let's run equals test integration. What distro are you using? I am using Ubuntu 21.10. So I was on 20.04 LTS for quite a while. I'm on 21.10 now. I did a reinstall, and I figure I'm going to jump to the next LTS in a few months anyway, so might as well get the new software. Cool. So we can see here EMP5 S0 twisted pair, EMP4 S0 other. Other. So EMP4 is my 10 gig NIC. It's not actually configured at this house right now, so other. That's strange. But then 5 is my 1 gig NIC, so yeah, that makes sense. But weird, okay. Yeah, you know, I have lots of friends who run NixOS and things on desktops and laptops. I actually run NixOS on my router and my server, and I really like it for that. I figure that for a machine that I really need to just work, and I don't want to deal with trouble, like, or if I want to play something like a Steam game, like, I feel like my life is just going to be easier if I run Ubuntu, you know? So I try and basically keep as little state on my development machines as possible so that they're pretty easy to just, you know, wipe away and rebuild. Like, all I basically had to do for reinstalling this was copy some .dot files, clone a few Git repos, and that was pretty much done. So that's been really nice. I think NixOS is super cool for sure, but Steam is running well on NixOS since it uses its own sandbox for games. Sounds like all kinds of fun. So this works. We have an integration test that seems to work here. So it would appear that strict check and extended acknowledge are both supported, which is good. Cool. So I think we'll probably just commit this as it is. Quality of life improvements on a best effort basis when the kernel is new enough to support those options. Hey, Free Baller, welcome to the stream. Thank you for the follow. Oh shoot, you know what? I don't think I carried the browser source over for alerts. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's something I'll have to set up, because I remember, at least in the version of OBS I was using, the browser source was not built in. You're using Regolith, you're hooked to i3 nowadays. Yeah, i3 is very cool. I have played with tiling window managers, but I find that, like, I just keep things pretty simple, so nothing beats Home Manager for managing your configs. Yeah, I should probably try that out, at least on my other machines, just because I'm curious. I've actually never tried Home Manager, believe it or not. Yo, long time no Netlink. Yeah, welcome back, Pratik. Good to see you. Yeah, it's been quite a while for sure, but it's good to be back. And it looks like, you know, there are folks who are, good number of folks here who are happy that I'm back too. So I appreciate that. I'm just going to go ahead and commit this. I think this is just a smart change. And let's see here. So actually, we'll print the name, the index, and then the rest of the struct, I suppose. So li interface port interface index, li interface name, and then interface port. So %d interface index is an integer. Oh, log f. Ah, there we go. So is that correct? I forget what type the... Yep, so twisted pair, other... Yeah, it makes sense. So ports, I think I generated strings for these, didn't I? Yeah, okay. Other. So I don't think there's anything plugged into that NIC right now, but normally it would be a direct attach. So, maybe Linux is just doing something strange. Hey, what's up, Clays? Good to see you here. Port. We'll do %s for the stringified version. Cool. Let's see here. Make sure the basic Netlink plumbing is in place without requiring the use of any privileged operations. I really need to find that text reflowing. I'm pretty picky about my 80 characters. I know it's silly, but I like to have 4 terminals wide sometimes if I can. Yeah, flow control. Don't know why you were thinking stop and continue. Gotcha. Yeah, so it is. So it turns out it is terminal flow control. I'll have to turn that off. Love to see you online again. Hope everything is okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, things are going really well. I'm definitely glad to be back. You know, it's been an interesting few months and everything. You know, and like I was able to basically save up some money. I decided I wanted to take some time off, so I'm doing that. And I was fortunate enough to sign a contract for a new job before I even left my old one. So I'm taking 6 weeks off anyway, but I'm excited about that. It just gives me time to do whatever I want, and of course, open source streaming. So good to be back. ETH tool. Let's see here. So apply. Let's see here. Quality of life options. Netlink options, add integration test. So set the profile and push. There we go. First commit of the day. Hey, Dominic to the rescue. STTY-IXON to turn it off. Cool, thanks, Jay. I'll make a note of that. I will have to probably set that up as like default. My terminals would be nice. I used to have a notes file over here. Where is that? Notes.txt. Cool. Thank you for the help. Dominic says, Market Visual Studio. All right, text rewrap. I need this desperately. Yes, I think this is the one. Is this the one where you press Alt-Q? Yes, Dominic. Oh, you saved me. Thank you. All right, Control-P. Oh, did I copy the wrong link? Copy. Control-P. It seems the copy is not working, so I guess I will grab the text manually. Ext install. Beautiful. Synchronized rewrap extension. Yes, please. Oh my god. I miss it so much without requiring the... Oh, I just hit Control Q, not Alt Q. That's why. Oops. Alt Q. Yes, Dominic. My favorite viewer. Yeah. Welcome back to the stream, everybody. Turns out I don't remember how to use my computer, so. Cool. Doing good. So we have an integration test now that works. That's good enough for me. I think I did I did it again. I did the control, there we go. I did the control S thing again, so let's fix that. Let's see here. It's okay, you never expected much from a VS Code user. Hey, fair enough. I keep it simple. I would say that, it's kind of funny. I feel like I'm still pretty bad at Linux, considering how much I've used it and stuff. Like, I don't know. I guess I tend to stick to what I know well and just don't want to deal with a whole lot else, So we fixed that up. I think basically I want to take this block and copy this into the Netlink project as well. So back here. So instead of this connection options array, I think probably I want to add this, but what do we name it, right? Naming is always the hard thing. Strict, or because it's going to give you better error messages and such. So we call into the OS specific configuration, which is this call will always fail on other platforms anyway. So probably would pass the connection option. Actually, I'll probably just do it in dial, to be honest. New con. I see. I forget what. I think probably doing it out here is the most reasonable thing, but oops, multi-cursor mistake. Right. So we try to turn it on. Ooh, so here's one thing actually I was thinking about earlier too. So perhaps, this was a bit of a mistake, but up until this point, I have still supported every Go release back to 1.12 because 1.12 was the one that I needed to make all of the runtime network polar integrations and everything like totally work. But I would really like to start using, like, for example, error wrapping and such, and that's 1.13, isn't it? So is this the point where I decide to say screw it and require 1.13? Considering we're on 1.17 today, 1.18 is around the corner, I think it's probably pretty reasonable. And I guess if it's your own fault if you're stuck with it. Require 116, yeah. I would like to, but I've run into issues before where people... I've run into issues before where people have been using this on like LTS distros and such. In the list of changes for V2, no, I would definitely do this in V1 still. Like, I'm not going to break the APIs, but requiring a minimum Go version, I don't think is an unreasonable ask, especially when it's already still an unsupported release of Go at this point. So I think I might start using errors is actually, and just say we only support 113. So I'll make a note really quick. I previously did this with, here we go. This is the last release of Sports Go 112. 113 is when modules came out also. Yeah, I think you could use them in 111, but I think they were on by default in 113, right? I believe. Sports Go 112. We're going to start supporting Go 113. I think is totally reasonable at this point. These people can't even run static check. Why should they be able to write code using a library? Yeah, you raise a pretty good point. But if it's not tremendously difficult, I will make it work. 113 plus. Users in older versions must use version 150. I sent some jealous package maintainer in the chat. You're such a people pleaser. Yeah. I want to do what I can to be reasonable, I suppose, but yeah, we're gonna say that 113 is the new minimum. I think would be a good idea. So actually, something good to do would be go get or go install golang.org dl go 113. I don't care about the point version at latest. GitHub sponsors get access to your LTS branch. I don't have an LTS. I just say, you know, there's no support. You know, nobody has paid me for support. So, so this is a nice trick. So if you ever need to install an older version of Go to verify compatibility, you can run like go install golang.org dl, and you get this tool here. So I can run go 113 download. Can you install any Go version? Yes. Yeah, this is a useful trick. So now I can run go 113 test, for example. So I do this all the time I do this to like verify compatibility with old versions of Go. So if I really wanted to, I could pull like, you know, go 1.9 or something. I'm not sure how far it goes back. I want to say this started coming around like 1.8, 1.9 days. There's also go tip. So go tip is really nice too. Yes, exactly. You can also test go tip. Yep. So I do have tip installed as well because I was going to start playing with generics a little bit. So, and the go tip command can also, if I run go tip download, this will actually update the tree, compile a new version of the tool chain and everything. So that's pretty cool. I probably shouldn't do that right now, but let's see here. Professional man. Oh yeah, Filippo's blog about, yeah, that's an interesting blog post. I'd recommend folks who haven't seen that take a look. People should treat open source maintainers a lot more nicely. Yes, absolutely. For what it's worth, I've never really had a bad experience, but I've certainly had friends who have had bad experiences, you know, with people in the community. I'm usually pretty quick to shut people down if they're being impolite, but not everybody's as comfortable, you know, with that sort of thing. Let's see here. So if C strict, maybe we got to come up with a name for this option. So if config strict is kind of right. Verbose, no, it's not right. What do we call this? Can you please paste the command you did to download a earlier Go version? Yeah, absolutely. So go install, for example, go install this. So once you get this, yep, there's the command. So if you run that, then you'll run like, for example, go 113, and then you type download, and that will actually download the archive and get that going. So yeah, happy to help. It's definitely a cool trick. Would definitely recommend that one for testing things out. I'm thinking I'm going to go with maybe the name strict for now, but I don't really know how much I love that, I guess. So Apply quality of life improvements. Best effort basis when the kernel is new enough to support those options. Yeah. Although maybe if the user specifies this, then I shouldn't do this behavior here. Maybe I should make it so that if they pass this, then the library, if they're setting a setting intentionally like this, like if I give the user control over this and something fails, then that is going to be a silent failure if I were to have this block in here. So I think probably I will actually just leave it as is. So I think we're going to end up renaming. I don't like this strict variable name so much, but or the config name. So let's see here. Strict. Strict applies a more strict configuration to the con, including probably make a little bit of a list here. Extended acknowledge true. What all did we just set? Extended acknowledge and what was the other one? No, I don't want. Let's go back to a single pane here. Yeah, I'll save that really quick. But close those out, close those out. So we're going to set extended acknowledge and we're going to set get strict check, right? A more strict default configuration, set of options to the con, including set acknowledge true. Provides better error messages when supported by the kernel. Provides more useful error messages when supported by the kernel. Get strict check true. Enforces, let's see here. Enforces request. More strictly enforces request validation for some subsystems, such as Netlink, which were historically misused. Get strict check more strictly enforces request validation for some subsystems, such as Netlink, which were historically misused, such as for some families, I guess is the term we've been using in Netlink land a lot of time. I think that's a pretty reasonable explanation. So I think probably I'll just make it so this is like a living document here of the sort of options this is providing. If any of the options specified by strict cannot be configured due to an outdated kernel or similar, an error will be returned. When possible, setting strict to true is recommended to provide better. It's recommended for modern applications on modern Linux kernels, for applications running on modern Linux kernels. I think something roughly like that makes sense. This is certainly something I'm going to set in pretty much all of my projects because I set these options all the time and I've been wondering for a while now about this. And I think this is going to tie in pretty nicely with the policy stuff I'd like to do today as well. We've already been going for about 50 minutes, dang. So I guess I'm going to be planning on going for probably 3 or 4 hours total today. And I suppose that if we want to, we can always, do another stream tomorrow or in a couple days. I suspect I'm going to be doing quite a few of these over the next few weeks, so that'll be fun. Definitely miss doing this a lot, so strict applies a more strict set of default set of options to the con. So at this point, we need to verify. So things are currently compiling, which is good. So does that mean all the tests pass right now as well? That's surprising. I would have figured there'd be something that would rely on... nope. The nil pointer dereference. Really? So, okay. Nil pointer dereference at integration test line 367, set buffer syscall con dial 1038. So dial is panicking. Weird. Con 64. If config... Oh, so config is nil is why. I see. So previously we had moved the... Yeah, so this was moved into this point. Suppose I could probably hoist it out into the upper level constructor. That seems like pretty... Or the exported constructor, that seems pretty reasonable to me. Is this still going to pass? I guess we'll see. It does. Interesting. Let's see here. Oh, I missed a comment here. Or goenv. I'm actually not familiar with goenv. I know, is that like a version manager for Go? I know there used to be a thing called like GVM for like Go version manager. It was like a Ruby, it was like a port of like the Ruby version manager. I just run these little commands. Like I find that I often want the latest version of Go anyway. So I just keep up with that. Yeah, it's just like RBenv and pyenv. Okay, cool. That's good to know. This isn't actually set at all. So config strict. This is silly. I used to double space all my comments. Now I don't anymore. So I'll just fix that up while I'm here. A specific dial. Let's see here. The caller has requested a strict option set. Historically, I have recommended KHX, welcome, thank you for the follow. Historically recommended checking for no proto opt if the kernel does not support the option in question, but that may result in a silent failure and unexpected behavior for the user. Treat any error here as a fatal error and require the caller to deal with it. Need to close the socket as well. If this fails, if any of these things fail, we need to close the socket. Should I apply this in new con maybe? No? Yeah. I want to get rid of this too. So unfortunately, some of the stuff that we had in the past for like the NL test constructor, like basically I want to make all of this go away for V2. So lesson learned. I think that the approach that Stoppelberg took for the NF tables library, basically swapping in like a test dial function roughly is what I want to do. The current NL test stuff is too complicated, frankly. It's just too complicated. So would rather not deal with that anymore. Right. Strict option set. Historically, we have the kernel does not support the option in question. Cool. I do want to have at least one integration test for this as well. So integration con. What kernel version was supported by the... I forget what kernel version some of these options came out in, really, is the thing here. I'm sure I could go look, but I guess that if I'm at the point where I'm hard coding different kernel versions in here, then that's kind of nasty. So I think probably what I will do is I will make one new test that looks for proto opt and just deal with it, I suppose. So I think for the time being, we had talked about, for example, getting rid of support for Go 112 today. That's probably a good idea as well. I think I will probably add this to the 113 integration test file. So this one right here. ETH tool extended acknowledgement. Yeah. So the ETH tool package could actually use the strict mode as well, but I think for the time being, I will make it just for, I'll make a test in here for the strict mode specifically. So ETH tool extended acknowledge, close con, test integration con, strict t testing t. So we will create a connection. So regular Netlink dial. Yeah, regular Netlink dial with Netlink generic, usually my go-to. Configure strict mode to true. Error T fatal F failed to dial Netlink. Defer C close. Do I provide get option? I do not actually. So I don't provide the ability to get the options, but we can do it with a syscall con. So I think probably what I'll do here is I'll do a syscall con. So C syscall con. SC error failed to open syscall con. Defer SC. No, that's right. So SC control. So we have access to the raw file descriptor underneath. Error T fatal F failed to call control. Cool. So we're going to apply those options. We're going to double check on the underlying file descriptor which options actually got set. That's the best thing we can do probably to verify this behavior without writing a bunch more code. So that works for me. Something else. So I've been working on the Netlink package a little bit recently. Thanks again, Dominic, for saving me from myself. MD layer, Netlink. So yeah, I just released 1.5 yesterday. Let's see here. So we have a new API. There was somebody who requested that we have the ability to bind to a specified port ID. And this is something that you can do, of course. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I suppose that in some cases it may be useful to have a fixed port ID instead of letting the kernel assign one for you. So why not? The bind interface supports it, so I guess it's not that much harm. And also, we actually reduced I moved out the network namespace support into my socket library. So this is a low-level package for effectively dealing with all the things you have to deal with to integrate with the runtime network polar, handle socket options, asynchronous I/O, now network namespaces. It just does all that for you, so you don't really have to care. So I was able to get rid of a bit of code, which is good, or I guess move it. So all this network namespace code goes away. We specify the namespace to the socket config, and the underlying library takes care of all that for us now. So yeah, this is something I've been working on for a little while. It's used in the Netlink library right now, but hopefully over the next few weeks, something else I'd like to work on is basically, I have the library, the package is called raw, but really what it is it's Linux packet sockets and a couple of things that are kind of like that for BSD. I think I probably want to deprecate and archive that library and make one focused just on AF packet. And that would actually be built on top of this. And then my VSOC library, which actually is also pretty widely used, I would rebase on top of this as well. So both those things get support for network namespaces for free, and they don't have to deal with any of the network runtime network polar integration themselves, which is a good thing. So that is something that I will probably be doing over the next few weeks. But if you find yourself writing a low-level socket package, I have basically put in all of the knowledge and things I've learned into this one. But generally, you don't want to use this in your own applications. Like if you're reaching for this package in application code, you probably should take a step back because this really is like a syscall kind of package. Yeah, any use of this package should be guarded by build tags because you're probably going to be using lots of OS-specific constants and etc. But the Netlink package uses this pretty heavily now, and as a result, the code is much, much tidier than it once was. So if we look, for example, at the Linux connection code, we open this socket con, pass in the network namespace. We're calling methods on it, such as bind, get sock name, like your system calls you would expect. But the actual, setting socket options and stuff, like a lot of this functionality is now handed off to that library and just becomes much, much simpler. So yeah, check it out. Definitely a good learning experience for me. And again, I have put all of my knowledge into all the tricky things like dealing with, socket options, close on exec, etc., all into this package. So would recommend. So back to where we were writing an integration test for 113 plus. So let's see here. If errors is error proto opt. Actually, when we fail to dial, what type of error do we return right now? Dial returns socket. So we get like the raw syscall error essentially. So the Netlink package has its own error type, and I use that for the send and receive and such, but I don't use it at all for dial right now. Maybe that's a bit of an inconsistency. So maybe that's something we should consider in the future. So to do MD layer, plumb in Netlink op error wrapping. Just something to consider a little bit, I suppose. But once it's actually up and running, you actually get those proper errors. So for now, this, for example, the set option will return. Oh, it will return a syscall error set sock opt. Yeah, so no proto opt. Yep. So Unix no proto opt. Skip F skipping. Strict options not supported by this kernel. So the integration test will skip this if any of these fail. Otherwise, we would expect that they are all configured properly, and now we can actually check for them by looking up the raw options themselves. So I'm going to go full screen for a sec here, and then we're going to go back and pull up the other ones and take a look at the Linux con, I believe, close all the other tabs. And now we get the ability to check for these raw socket options. So the ones we're looking for are, oh, sorry, hang on one sec. Got a message. They changed up a bunch of the Twitch stuff since I last streamed too, so things are a little different. So my stream panel here is a little weird. Cool. Back to where we were. So basically, I want to check for a map of socket options. So I think these are just integers and then their values. So I think probably we're going to have a map. So map of integer, which is going to be the socket option, to Boolean, which is whether or not it's enabled. So I think probably what I will do here is query for... Actually, you know what we can do? We can make this a little tidier. Instead of having like a separate data structure, we'll do this. So Unix Netlink, extended acknowledgement, false. Netlink strict check, false. Hey, what's up, Flo? Good to see you. So we're actually going to check here. We're going to check for both of these options. Actually, we're going to verify that everything in this map is set as we would expect. So for kv, for k, colon equals range, got. We're going to invoke a set sock opt on the file, or a get sock opt on the file descriptor. I find myself wondering now if perhaps I should also, so I have the syscallcon method, which exposes the low-level type like the file descriptor directly, but honestly, it would be kind of nice to have the socket con here instead, because that has methods that already do everything I want. So for example, like getting a hold of the integer and such. So, interesting. Like, for example, like get sock opt int and similar. But I suppose for now, we can replicate it manually. So get sock opt int, the file descriptor, unix.sol netlink, and then the option in question itself, which is k. So the value and an error. So v error. So basically, if we want to make sure that the value for all these is 1, so if error equals nil and v equals 1, then we set got k to true. I'll comment this as well, but basically we want to make sure that everything in this map is true. So, fair kv range, let's see here. If not v, t.log or fatal f. Socket option %d was not applied, is not set to true. Okay. I think that's roughly what we want. So yeah, we're applying the strict configuration. We open the syscall con. We're going to iterate over basically the socket options, check them all directly, make sure they're all equal to 1. And if any of them are false, then we return an error. So I think I'll actually make this an error f because I don't want it to fail the test completely. I think this will work. So let's see here. So go test v run test integration constrict. Passes. Sweet. Cool. So of course I'm running a new kernel on my machine, but now we'll see the test coverage is also good. So that's good to know. Good job. Yep, easy enough. I'm gonna go ahead and of course comment this up a little bit as well. Let's see here. Oops. I just hit F11. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes you'll bump like random buttons on the keyboard, and it's like, what did I do exactly? Let's see here. So, strict mode applies a series of socket options. Check each applied option and update the map to true if we found it set to true. Any options which were not applied as expected will return result in the test failing. Easy enough. The kernel uses 0 for false and 1 for true. So if the error is nil and the value equals 1, yep. Failed to call control. We have the file descriptor. We have verify the socket options. So socket option %d was not set to true. We don't have like stringified names for these, like extended acknowledgement or strict check. The kernel doesn't have. I suppose if I wanted to, I could have like a string thing here, but I'm not too worried about it. This looks pretty good to me. So let's see where we're at right now. So we have this new strict variable. I'm not totally sold on the name still, but it's better than anything else I can come up with. And we always have some time before we tag a release. So let's see here. Constrict. Oh, thanks, Google Home. I'm making cold brew coffee, and I think that's a reminder to take a look at that. Actually, it might be done. I think I started about 24 hours ago. So, okay. Let's see here. So Netlink add constrict. Actually, I should add a release note too. Can always change it later on. New API. We don't have the commit yet. We will though. New API commit to do. Netlink config strict field can be used to apply best practice defaults for working. Best practice defaults, best practice options. Let me go check the documentation again that I wrote and just make sure I'm consistent with the wording, because it's easy to get confused if I don't word it the same way. Let's see here. To apply a more strict default set of options to a Netlink con. This is useful. This is recommended for modern applications running on modern Linux kernels, but cannot be enabled by default because the options may require a more recent kernel than Go supports. I'm actually not sure what Go supports these days. I think they just finally dropped support for kernel 2.6. It might be in the 3s, and I'm pretty sure at least one of these didn't show up until like kernel 4, like mid 4 series. So options may require more recent kernel than Go supports. See the documentation for details. Details. I was outside doing some yard work today, so I'm a little like jittery, just hauling stuff around, raking leaves, all that, all kinds of fun. Cool. Let's see here. So add con config strict option. Looks good to me. We can always change the name. Let's go ahead and push that, and I suppose we can verify static check. Good. A more recent kernel than Go supports. Doesn't Go support any future kernel by virtue of eternal backwards compatibility in the Linux kernel? Options may require a more recent kernel than Go. The minimum kernel. Yeah, so okay, you got me there. So may require a more recent kernel than the minimum kernel version that Go supports. That is the correct statement there. Does that make sense, Dom? I think that is what I intended to say. So this is recommended for applications running on modern Linux kernels, but cannot be enabled by default because the options may require a more recent kernel than the minimum kernel version that Go supports. See the documentation for details. I think that makes sense. So I can, yeah, that makes more sense. Cool, thank you. I'll go ahead and update that. So changelog, clarify, note, about minimum kernel version. Go ahead and push that. Cool. Let's go check CI really quick. Make sure things are passing as expected. I don't see any reason it wouldn't, but failed on Mac OS, of course. Is that option? Ah, shoot. Yeah. So I broke my cross-platform abstraction a little bit here. So even though we don't support Mac OS, for example, I tried to make it so that it will always build. So yeah, okay. So we need to move this probably into the dial function specifically. Yeah, so I think this might be where we had the problem from before I was talking about, because we moved this out. Yeah, I broke my own abstraction here. So move this back and move all this back as well. So we have the socket con in place here. Once we have the socket, bind get sock name, and then I guess we would apply it. Oh, new con also has a nil check. Interesting. That might be for tests. Not sure if we actually need both of those, but I think probably the correct way to do it would be here. So we bind the socket, we get its name, and then we're ready to go. So set option no. I guess this is where we could potentially use the lower level APIs. Or I guess I could do this in dial instead, because the unexported con type here does support set option, and it does the lookup and everything, and I don't really want to copy all this logic. So probably what makes the most sense is to put this in the return for dial instead. But then new con wouldn't actually observe it either, so I guess I probably need to... The con is backed by the socket. Well, Daddy Deo, welcome. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Con SS. So we have the connection prepared. We will nil 0 error. Is this past test? it does. It looks like. Yeah, I suppose this makes sense. I want this to be in the critical path where possible. Like, so new con is the final constructor. I think we use this for some tests internally because we construct the socket con separately. But I suppose this is probably the spot that makes the most sense. It always strikes me as a little weird to have a constructor where you construct the thing, you call methods on it, and then you return it in the constructor. I don't know why, but it feels like a little bit of a layering violation to me. But that being said, I do think this is probably the most correct approach. So I'll go with it. We can always clean it up later, or especially in like a V2. So let's verify really quick that we fixed the build. Still broken because I never saved this file. That's why. Okay. The tests pass again. I think that's correct now. So we're moving the configuration defaults, or the default nil check, which needs to exist here because we specify groups in PID. We have the strict option. We have the connection option supplied here. Hey, Large Data Bank, welcome back. Thank you so much for 17 months. Wow. Yeah, you're definitely, I'm sure you're my longest subscriber at this point, so thank you so much. I appreciate that. Great to be streaming again for sure. And yeah, thanks for your support, man. Hoping that we can get some cool like combo streams set up in the next few weeks and stuff, while I'm off. Maybe I'll try and plan on like, Fridays at noon so I can stream for a few hours and then send people over to you. That could be pretty fun, so. Cool. So Netlink, fix Linux build. I'm moving strict call, strict configuration, config, setup. That'd be great. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, I find that after like 3 to 4 hours, I'm usually pretty spent anyway, and it'll give me a good excuse to keep streaming, so that'll be fun. So, yeah, I think that probably now all of our CI should be passing, and then we can start dropping support for Go 113 or Go 112, and then we can finally get back to the policy thing, which I talked about originally. It's all baby steps. It seems like with streaming, things always take a little longer, just because you want to talk about stuff and like just think through things a little bit more. But I think it's good because we all work on these things together, So at this point, I can't think of any reason why this wouldn't pass. I just want to verify, especially the the integration test. Yep, that passed. That's cool. Yeah, sweet. So we fixed that up. That's good. Right on. So at this point, we have the new option. I want to start using it for sure. But first, yeah, I think I want to start dropping the support for Go 112. You feel like you haven't used nearly enough GitHub Actions features? Yeah, me either, for sure. Dom, I'm not sure if you're still around, but I have this like static check, kind of thing where I install a copy of static check and run it. I believe Dominic actually created a static check action now, which is pretty cool, and I think it will actually comment on your PRs. So that would be cool to set up for sure. I know there's things you can do to like make releases. Like there's tons you can do with it. I am using it as a glorified shell script runner still, but just keeping it simple, Keeping it simple. So it won't comment, but it will add annotations in the diff. That's nice. Actually, that's pretty cool. So I suppose I should look at doing that. Is that ready for general use? I would love to check that out. So Dominic H, Go tools, glorified shell script runner here as well. Yeah, for sure. It is. Yeah. Oh, sweet. Okay. Cool. So GitHub. I imagine you probably have your own static check. Yeah, there we go. So static check action view 1.0. Neat. Checkout, setup Go, test vet, install Go, cache key. Ah, that's pretty cool. I'll have to check that out at some point. I would want to do a little bit more reading about how actions fit together, but that's pretty neat. Glorified shell script runner is the best naming for my use of GitHub Actions use. Yeah, for sure. Me too. Hey, first time chat. Welcome, welcome. It's kind of better because you can toggle on and off comments and annotations individually, which is nice when you're a reviewer and don't want to drown in linter noise. Yeah, totally. I guess I haven't really played with the annotations as much, so that's something I'll have to check out. I know GitHub Review has gotten, a lot better, for sure. I still really like Garrett myself. I know I'm one of those weird people, but Garrett is nice for bigger patch sets, and it makes it a lot easier to see individual diffs between patch sets, but it also prevents people from doing like ridiculous fixing golint, gofumped commits. Not my thing. But you also miss Garrett, yeah. it's pretty good. That's a pretty unpopular take, I think. You wish they had a way to use Garrett as a GitHub front end. Garrett is Bay. Actually, isn't there a thing called Garrett Hub that's like a GitHub, like literally that, like a Garrett front end for GitHub? The name is familiar. I've never used it, so that is something I'd have to check out. Yeah, but it's like weird. Okay, yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, so I will add a commit for the strict option. So commit. Cool. Change log, link to config strict commit. Neat. Weird might be the wrong word, but look at the website. It doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Garrett Hub. Interesting. It looks like old GitHub branding. Isn't this like GitHub's old SourceForge? Or yeah, it looks like SourceForge. Look at this ancient Twitter logo. Interesting. Here's a Garrett instance. Looks like Q. Oh, Roger. Okay. So Q is using it. So this would be a Go project, I think. So expand all. Yeah. Huh. Sorry, I'll zoom in for you all. I apologize. I'm on a 4K monitor here. Interesting. I mean, so far this looks pretty. Again, this looks pretty nice, but I guess I'd have to. I don't know. I'm not going to force people to use Garrett to contribute to my projects. I think that it's something I would like, and it's something I would like for work, especially. But I'm not going to force anybody. But yeah, I mean, this seems interesting. It seems promising. I'm not gonna make a judgment. It seems promising. Can Garrett Hub send me messages on ICQ when my builds fail? That's great. First world problems. Cool. I think that we've been going for about an hour-ish. I'm going to go take a quick break, get some water, and I will be right back. I think I'm going to use the standing desk, too. Good time to stand up. So, BRB. Okay, we are back. Oh, what happened? My monitor turned off or unplugged? That's Well, that's very confusing. So now I have this over. That does not inspire confidence. What is going on? I just have X do X things in the middle. Wow, yeah, my monitor is gone. Hang on. Okay, I think I fixed it, but I have no idea what just happened. I hit the AFK screen, I walked away, and I come back, and my monitor was, my vertical monitor over here where I had OBS and everything was gone. So I don't know. That's very strange. Casual year of the Linux desktop, yeah, for sure. I was able to fix it just now by, yeah, just unplug and replug it, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, I guess we're back. I don't think there's anything. Yeah, nothing like privileged over there. You guys just saw my OBS multi-view, but that's super weird. All right, I'm gonna pretend like nothing has happened here. So I guess we're gonna keep on going. You know, see what we can do. Beats me. Anyway, yeah. So we are. Might adjust this slightly as well for standing. Sorry. Yeah, so getting back to this now, I think probably what we're going to do next is drop support for Go 1.13 or Go 1.12 because I really would like to start using the errors package especially. So probably the correct thing to do is going to be to go to my static analysis or my tests, Go 1.17. This is the ETH tool package. That's the wrong package. Yep, that explains why. Linux tests, let's say 1.13. 1.13. 13 again. Drop support for 12 through 16. Yeah, I wish. Yeah, this is definitely something that I've thought about a lot. I think that at this point, that probably supporting back to 1.13 is pretty just, you know, if it's I can do it without that much effort, then why not? Like I'm not missing out on that much. But that being said, I do intend to continue deprecating versions over time. 1.12 was really a deal breaker for a lot of people, or you know, having to support minimum of 1.12 was really the most important for me because between 1.10, 1.11, and 1.12, we got more and more functionality to hook into the runtime network poller, which is very important for things like timeouts. So that was pretty critical. So 1.12 definitely is the big one. I was really, really happy to drop the support for the old stuff there. Everything beyond that is just quality of life, like standard library functions, stuff like that. So, but I'd like to get rid of, for example, we have like files here that only build on, my terminal's doing the thing again. Control Q, there we go. We have, for example, some tests that only run on 1.13 and above, and I just want to be done with that at this point, like get rid of all the version shims. So we'll do that. Change compatibility to only go to, yeah, no. Have you ventured much into eBPF or XDP? I have done the bare basics. Like basically, I've gotten to the point where I wrote a small BPF program, compiled it, attached it to TC, I think? No. I used an SK lookup BPF program briefly and basically did like the hello world with that. Still haven't really done a whole lot with it. It's something I would like to explore more, but not at this point. No. I have not done that much. It's something that I would like to learn about, but just haven't had as much of a need, you know? So we're going to start dropping all the 1.12s, I guess, really quick. 1.12, Con Linux integration test, README, changelog, Netlink. So we'll change the Go mod first. That'll be a good spot to look. 1.13. There's some level of understanding of Linux kernel internals to use that stuff, though, correct? For BPF? Yeah. So, for example, like I think that, you know, when you are writing an SK lookup program, you get access to like the SKB, and SKB is like the Linux kernel like data structure is used to like basically store a packet, like the socket buffer or whatever else. So I think that you do need some knowledge, like, you know, going into BPF with no Linux internals knowledge would probably be pretty hard. But frankly, my knowledge of the actual internals is pretty limited other than what I've learned, like screwing around with Netlink and stuff, you know. So I don't have a ton of knowledge in that area either. Do we start calling Go 118 as Go 2? Is it reasonable? Yeah, it's interesting. So Go 2 is more of an idea than it really is a version specifically. So it's something that, you know, they were talking about for really big language changes or possibly things that like would be, you know, not backwards compatible. But it's entirely possible we may never get a Go 2. It, you know, it just may never happen, or it may happen, you know, another 5 years. Like, we don't really know. But they were able to add generics in a backwards compatible way for 118, which means that we don't need a Go 2. So makes sense. It seems to be the least documented thing I've come across. You can't just buy a book that does a deep dive on networking internals, apparently. Yeah, I think as far as like BPF specifically goes, it's evolving so fast, and there are things being added all the time that BPF is just new enough where there's not, you know, perhaps the documentation is a little bit weaker. As far as the Linux kernel internals, I think that, you know, there have been a few books about things like that, but they're pretty old as well. So I know Flow, for example, has done some BPF programs. There might be some other folks in here as well who could give you some good resources. Flow or Timo or let's see here. Yeah, there might be other folks around who have more experience in that area than me. Certainly some folks in the networking channel on Gopher's Slack. So check that out if you haven't. That's a good place to look. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot of resources. The best book about internals is the Linux programming interface. Yep, that makes sense. I have that one, but I think it's a fairly old book at this point, but still should be pretty useful. So back to where we were. I'm going to put all of these integration tests now in the other file. So we're going to completely get rid of this file here. We'll move all these. Probably should sort these a bit more. Things are kind of all stuck together at the moment. We have lots of different tests that cover different cases and helpers and things like that. This file is getting perhaps a little bit long, but I think for the time being, I'm just going to drop things in here and just get it out of the way. And then we can completely remove the greater than or equal to 113 test file, which is good. So go test, go 113 test. And actually, we're going to do the trick we did earlier. So we're going to install DL go 112 at latest. So I want to get a copy of 112 just to verify we broke it, because that's what I want. Shoot. Download. There's some good videos on YouTube from eBPFCon 2021 as well, and eBPF.io is a good starting point. Cool. Yeah, it's something that I would love to play with more. I just haven't had as much of an excuse. So, yep, there we go. Let's see here. Module requires Go 150. Oh, interesting. So the ETH tool module in particular uses a shift of assigned integer. Huh. Client Linux 452. I know that's like a fairly recent thing, and it uses errors as well, yeah, for the tests. But I actually could have sworn that, I don't remember specifically using that, so maybe I used it by accident, but it looks like Go 113 works. That's all I really care about. So that is interesting. I'd like to investigate that, but I think that for the time being, we're just going to keep going with 113. So I think I had a couple other things in here. To-dos. And I'll test deprecating or removing from V2, out of band, errors is, Conlex integration test. So use errors is, yep, there we go. Yeah, so see, this is a particular case where I was actually unwrapping the error manually because I could not use errors is, so errors is error. Cool. We might have a couple other places where we're doing similar error comparison or unwrapping. So I suppose at this point, maybe a good thing would be to comb through the non-test files and see if there's any places in particular that would benefit from error wrapping or errors is. And then beyond that, we can choose to do more. I kind of want to rework some of the internal error handling in this package anyway, because we have these really old like string errors that are not super helpful, and I think it would just be more useful if we had better error messages in general. So again, kind of goes back to this attribute policy thing we were talking about earlier today. We'll get to that, but one sec. I haven't put on any music today, and it's weird. Like I just realized like it's so quiet in here. So I'm gonna look for something really quick. But of course it's got to be off stream, so I've got that muted. Okay, that's good. Because you end up in the situation where there's the good old DMCA sort of stuff. So not super fun. Let me adjust. Oops. I've got my headphone amp and everything else over here too. So I've got to adjust all these little pieces. Exclamation point bangers. Gotta go get some sleep. Take care. Yeah, thanks Dominic for showing up. I appreciate it. Definitely, I will check out that static check action. But yeah, have a good night. So yeah, so going back to this, again, there are different places where we could like fix up the error handling. Probably have like a more useful error that wraps these internal things, and then we can actually have better tests too. So that is something I should probably do. I'm going to go ahead and make an issue for that because that's something that I don't want to forget about. So Netlink, take advantage of error wrapping for internal errors. Oops, got to move my keyboard down a little bit. There we go. We're dropping support for Go 112 in the next release. And thus we can start using errors is everywhere and error wrapping everywhere for more ergonomic error handling. We should provide much more detailed errors for callers instead of opaque ones which are not useful. Something to really think about, I guess, Oops, wrong way. There we go. So for example, like instead of having this, I would have something like, format error F, length %D, too short, %W, something like that. That's I'm not going to do that right now, but something I would like to start doing at least. I do eventually want to get to what I mentioned in the stream title today. So that's the goal, right? Let's see. I'm trying to think of any other places where we could use better error checking in particular. So a lot of these are pretty static. Things like the actual syscall code where we check for things like proto opt, that's where I want to add more checking most likely. So probably the connection code, I would guess. This socket error should probably be wrapped as well, because I think the socket package just provides raw syscall errors. OS new syscall error, yeah. So it's not the worst thing, I suppose, but that's something I should work on. Or else I do error checking. So I did have one here, but I got rid of it because we want to be explicit. So if the caller gets into a situation where they are unable to set one of these options for any reason, like if they set the strict mode to true, but their kernel doesn't support it, we want to return an error here. So what else? As far as I know, the multicast groups are always supported, so that's something that we may need as well. None of these operations, I guess, are going to be returning netlink errors. So this is something that I was talking about a little bit ago, but it's like we're in a situation where we have this netlink op error type, but it's only really used, I think, for send receive, which are the typical operations you would use, I suppose. But something I may want to look into. So failed netlink operation, send or receive. If error is produced by an error code or Netlink message, it'll contain a raw value type such as Unix error now. Yeah, so we're in kind of a weird situation here where some of these errors are going to be syscall errors, and some of these are actually going to be this netlink op error type. So that's kind of, I guess in practice, it hasn't really come up as a problem because typically the other operations that return syscall errors, like the only reason they won't work is if your kernel doesn't support them. But for these other ones, like you run into situations where like, yeah, you have an invalid request or similar, and that's going to be wrapped up in a netlink op error, and that's where you get your extended acknowledgement stuff. So that's pretty useful. Oh, here's something. So deprecate, make use of errors, unwrap, and errors is, and go 113 plus. Yep. So that function is deprecated. File. I'm wondering if I should actually just change the documentation here to make it more explicit. Should always use, is not exist. Yeah. So. I think I should probably remove like all of this and just not even encourage the use of this anymore. Make use of errors, unwrap, and errors is, so I think what I've been doing in my other programs is roughly this: error permission and go 113 plus, because that's going to be more explicit. So make use of use errors, unwrap, and or errors is, and go 113 plus. Yep. I think that probably makes sense. Compatibility with go 113 errors. Yeah, this is something kind of weird. So the way the errors package works is it has this unexported interface with this unwrap method, and there's no name for it. So you kind of have to just know this convention. And so I end up with this like anonymous interface here, which I'm copying from the standard library. I don't really like that, and I kind of wish they would just export this, but they have not. So stuck with that for the time being. And there's also like, for example, the internal timeout and temporary interfaces I stole as well. What else do we have? Could probably tidy up some examples possibly. Looking for more places to use errors is at the moment. In the tests for sure. So probably comb through all the tests really quick. I haven't had to fuzz this in quite a while, but I don't think I've made any changes to the parser. I should port this to the new Go fuzzing as well. That would be a good idea. Yep, got some really old school error or old school code here. This is before I even used like the diff package for checking things. So let's see. Unexpected. I think that probably reworking the error handling is going to need to be a bit more work. So actually it looks like validate here can be used as, let's see here. Error is a pointer to a netlink, op error. Errors as. Do you pass a pointer to a pointer? Or do you pass the pointer directly? I don't remember how this works exactly. I've actually not really used this very much. So unexpected, validate, error type. I'll use %t. That'll be more useful for this. So does this pass? Op error. Let's see. Now it's incorrect. A non-nil pointer to either a type that implements error to any interface type. Like so. Yes, I think you pass a pointer to a pointer here because my type is, my op error is a pointer to, the pointer to op error implements error. So you have to pass a pointer to that pointer type. So as a result, you have that indirection in here, which is kind of weird, but yep, that's correct. Cool. Keep going. Nope. Don't need help. VS Code, thank you. Yeah, so for example, like, we're talking about this error incorrect message length. Like, this could be a lot more helpful if we were to actually return a concrete error type here, or an error that told you, like, for example, how many bytes it was. It'd be a lot more useful for sure. Something I'll have to check out. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So 113, 113. I'm going to remove this split. I'm not really using it. So we move in the rest of the tests to the integration test file. We are using error.exist and similar. We're using errors is to check the enow proto opt. We dropped the type assertions that we were using. We simplify this documentation, make it more clear that you really have to use is not exist now. Go 113 in the module. Remove the type assertion. Yep. Looks good to me. GitHub. Cool. Let's see here. So Netlink drops support for Go 112. Great. Pretty happy about that for sure. It's going to make, again, the errors much better. So first release of the package that supports Go 113 plus. Older users older versions of Go must use 150. I should clarify this. Go. Because it's confusing to see users of older versions, but I'm talking about the package instead of Go. Actually, I think this is probably older versions of Go must use. So modify the changelog again, clarify Netlink versus Go version. Let's go double check things here really quick to make sure the the GitHub actions are still passing because we moved a bunch of stuff around. Probably a good idea. I think we got things pretty much working here. Let's see. Cool. All right, so I think we're actually at a point now where we can start poking at this stuff I have been wanting to play with for a while as far as the policy. So what's interesting is I feel like the policy stuff in particular, I've seen it with generic Netlink. It probably applies to route Netlink and such as well. But if I run, for example, shoot, I don't think I have this utility installed. So, oh, I do. Yeah, so if I run this genl utility, you'll actually see here that some of these families have policies associated with them as well. So NL control, for example, you can do it, can dump it, has policy. These are internal things where you're able to write to it, read data from it, and dump information. And then this is the Netlink policy thing itself. So for example, if I do GNL control, or what's the here? Control get name control, something like that. Help. I forget how this works. So genl control policy. There we go. Policy name control. But doesn't the controller have policy too? Policy ID 1. What's going on, Whip Dog? Thank you for the Prime sub. I appreciate that. Good to see you, man. Policy name. But see, that's not a family that exists. So I guess NL80211, for example. That doesn't seem right. So how do you expose this then? Control policy. Control LS. Control policy. NetDM seems to have it. So policy name netsdm. Okay, so it looks like at least this one does. So we can see here we've got a couple of policies applied here, for example, to attribute 1, attribute 9, attribute 11. So we get types and then the ranges of valid values for those types as well. So that's cool. So we want to basically take this information and expose it somehow in the library. And by doing that, we will actually provide better error messages to our callers and such. So the thing is, it's exposed via generic netlink, but I think this is still like a fundamental netlink mechanism. So I'm not exactly sure. Let's see here. So netlink policy user space. There was that LWN article. Here we go. So we have NLA, unspec, binary, minlen, exactlen, IP route 2. So IP route 2 is not using generic netlink, it's using route netlink. NL802.11 is generic netlink. So if route netlink has it as well. Oh, so it's the GNL utility. Okay, so maybe this does just apply to generic. Maybe the other ones don't have this. So control command get policy. So you can get the policy for a given family. And then within that policy, for example, we have things like, the IDs, the number of maximum attributes that are supported, the ranges, etc. So I think probably what I want here is to see which of these have a policy. Probably add this to the generic netlink library specifically, because it looks like the GE netlink control command get policy, control attribute policy. So this might actually go in the generic netlink library, I think. So GE netlink.h. Let's take a look really quick. No, I want the user space version actually. So shoot, wrong link. Is this the user space? No, it's not. Isn't it include Linux UAPI? Include Linux, no, include UAPI, right? Include UAPI, Linux, GE netlink.h, I think is what I'm looking for. Yeah. So this is what the generic netlink interface exposes to user space. So for example, we have things like the has policy. So this is a flag we can look up. That's good. We can get families, which we already do that. We can get the operations supported. We can get the multicast groups. We can get the policy. So this is what we want to look for, is this control command get policy. And then we can actually start dumping that out for the individual families. So I think probably we are going to switch over to the generic netlink library. And so, for example, we know that netdm has policies here we can look at. So I suppose I will probably take a look at that really quick. Oops, here we go. Open this up. And actually, we have bumped the version a few times. So let's go ahead and pull the latest MD layer netlink at latest. So this is not going to include the strict changes we just had, but this will include everything that I've done up until this point as far as things like the network namespaces, the socket library support, etc. So I cleaned things up a little bit more. Let's see. Go mod tidy. Go mod use dealer netlink at v150. Set that up again. Okay. Cool. So now we are in the latest version of the netlink library. That's good. We need to create a small program here. So for example, I usually like to just create like a command genl policy or something, like a little temporary thing here, a program we can use to develop with and iterate. So main.go package main. So generic netlink dial, no configuration because it will have everything we need by default, I believe. Error log failf failed to dial for C close. So for example, we are going to be talking to the controller by default, but the controller doesn't seem to have policy, at least. And maybe it will, I guess. So if we do, we'll look at netdm, for example, because we know that one does. So family error. So failed to open netsdm. And then we will just dump out everything we find so far about it. So if I go here and we run this, shoot. So we can see we have a family called NetDM version 2. It supports these multicast groups. Cool. So there should be more attributes here basically that we can dump, and those attributes will actually allow us to get a hold of things like the policy. So I would expect that those would be pretty readily available if we start looking at the, let's see here. Oh, this is the testing package. So probably something I'm going to deprecate again. So when we're getting a family, we call get family version 1 to the controller. We unpack the family from its attributes, which is right here. So we have the attribute family ID, name, version, multicast groups. So now we're going to have, for example, the associated policies. So I think probably what I will do, control adder policy. Do I have to bump xsys to get all of this? How old is that? So let's do that really quick just in case. Xsys. Did that work? Xsys Unix. Claims to be up to date, I suppose. So what's this called? Control attribute op policy. Control adder policy. Okay. So this should give us something. We'll just dump the bytes for these really quick. Does it claim this is undefined? Go run. So attribute policy is undefined. Okay, so it looks like this was not regenerated with the most recent, at least not the version I'm using, 2021-11. Huh. So maybe the package doesn't support this. So going xsys Unix. Let's see here. Oh, yes, that is what I want actually. Shoot. So this is genl underscore. Chrome is not scrolling. Did I lock it up? Oh, weird. Genl policy attr. So control adder is what they are. So control adder policy. It is not present. Interesting. So I guess this hasn't been regenerated with the new set of constants. So actually, I guess I have to add this to xsys. That's cool. Go get needs a suffix. Nope. It looks like it appears that this does not have the attribute I want included upstream. So yeah, I guess I'll have to add that. That's cool. Not a big deal. So source. Do I have? I do not. So golang.org xsys x. So this lives at go google source.com sys. Oh no. So I have not run the code generator on this machine, so I don't think I have like Docker or anything else installed. Oh no. Oh no. This is bad. This might be a not today. Let's just see what happens. So I know you have to specify the operating system and the architecture. 64. What's the command called? Make all.sh. Docker. Yeah, shoot. Oh boy. So it needs Docker, it needs QEMU, it needs all that stuff. Well, all right, let's do it. Docker latest. Hey, it could be worse. At least you're not trying to get Docker to play nice with M1. Yeah, I can imagine. I'm glad I'm on Linux. So, no, I just want the download, man. Docker latest release. I spelled it wrong. I feel like they really took a good thing and made it really difficult for no reason. I want the open source. Yeah, just give me the GitHub repo, man. I don't know what Docker engine is. I don't know, like, Is Docker Engine the thing I want? Docker desktop for Linux? No. I have no idea. It has been so long since I've dealt with this. Not my favorite. Docker Ubuntu install. Yeah, probably. Apps install Podman. Apps install docker.io. Yeah, I guess the thing is I wasn't sure. Oh, yeah, Podman. Would Podman work just fine for this? I guess I would prefer to have Podman instead of Docker if possible. So that would be nice. Sudo apt install docker. I don't know if I really want to get into this today. I think, what we're going to do, we're going to copy the, I don't want to deal with this on stream. I'm going to copy the constant value. So let's see here. So multicast groups, it's one after policy, mcast group. So it'll be 8. So we will upstream this another time because I do not want to deal with this right now. No interest. So I would expect that this would do what we want. Nothing happened. Multicast groups policy should be 8, I would think. We tried to print it and we got nothing. I guess let's add a default block probably is the correct way to do this. So %d. So we'll print the type and the bytes for each attribute we find here. So 456. 456. So 4 bytes, a big blob. I'm guessing this 6 is probably what we want. So control adder multicast groups version. So what's before mcast groups? Operations. So this doesn't appear to be returning the policy attribute like I thought it would. So if I'm reading this correctly, ops policy would be 1 after. So policy would be 8, I believe. So I think the ops is something different. So what is going on? So we have 456. Hang on just one sec. Got a phone call of some sort. Oh, I just gotta. Okay, I'll have to deal with that in a little bit. So, anyway, let's see here. Z types. No. Yeah, this is really strange. So I guess what I was looking at, if I run the control policy, yeah, so we can see these policies here. But for some reason, they're not exposed in the way I would expect. So I'm trying to figure out, let's see here. Operations, op. So the controller, type NLA32. So it would appear that the controller itself should have this policy associated. Control adder op. No, this is op. So where exactly is this used, I guess? I'm confused. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this a little bit, but this is only referenced line 1293 policy. Start control adder policy, which is a nested attribute. Huh. So I thought that this would be defined when you dump the family, but maybe, actually, I did see a separate operation for it. So maybe we have to fetch the policy separately. So if I go back, we have the commands for getting the multicast groups and such. There was also, I believe, a command for getting the policy. So maybe it's exposed separately. I wonder why, but sorry. Yeah, so control get policy, right? So this is perhaps what I'm looking for right here. Control command get policy. So instead of dumping these, maybe we need to issue a different command to get a hold of it. So say, for example, here, once we have a family, we can dump the policy for it. So I'm going to go ahead and probably just make like a temporary shim of some sort. Let's see here. Connection, get family. Yeah, so I think probably what I will do, so con get policy, aim string. We're just going to hard code this all temporarily. But I think roughly what we want is to copy what get family is doing, but instead of passing the operation for getting the family itself, we want to get the policy associated with that family as well. So if we go back to family, we're going to take this, and we're going to copy this. Again, just doing something kind of dirty just to get this up and running. So we're going to get the policy. We're going to return a single error. So control attribute family name. I assume it's identified by the family name or ID still. So get policy, which also is not present, of course. So we need get MCAS group +1. So get MCAS group +1. This is also a to-do because we don't have the code generator working at the moment. So call that, request directly to the controller, execute, and then this should dump some messages here. Try the ghost view utility really quick, which should give us probably a series of Netlink messages here. So it's not going to work. We have to fix a couple things. So get, let's say I want to get the policy instead. SPU undefined. Oh, that's right. I don't have it on the system either. Well, I don't really want this in my Go mod, but it's pretty helpful. So what's it called? Dave CGH Go SPU, right? Family Linux line, fix the import. Operation not supported. So apparently for this particular family, it does not support fetching its policy, even though it looked like it was exposed directly. Huh. This is strange. Let's try a different family. So for example, let's try the controller itself, right? Is that what it's called? Is control? Operation not supported. If I spell this wrong, what happens? Okay, so there's something fishy going on here. There's something wrong with my call. Actually, you know, what's funny is we were just mentioning Netlink gives pretty vague error messages. So if I do C set option, Netlink extended acknowledge true, this should actually give us better errors, hopefully. Fatal F, failed to set option. So it's possible this will give us better errors. It's possible it won't. No, did not. So let's see here. So let's trace the kernel code a little bit. So if we look at get policy here, what does this do? Line 1194, line 1330. So dump policy prep. Get policy. Command get policy. Dump policy start. Oh, you know what? Am I passing the wrong flags? So I think I need to dump it. Netlink dump. I think. No such file. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now, yeah, so now I think because we have the name wrong. There we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so unfortunately, we ran into another Netlink-ism a little bit where this was a request that we were supposed to pass the dump flag to, and we were trying to request like a single thing essentially. So again, kind of the sort of thing you just eventually kind of run into. What happens if am I not passing acknowledge on the, hang on. Does this ever set acknowledge by default? Really? Typically, a lot of these families require you to set acknowledge for certain things. What happens if I set it? Netlink acknowledge. Is this going to hang it? No. Huh. Well, now what happens if I spell it wrong? It should give me, hopefully, a better error. Nope. Okay. Well, move on here. So we're coming up on about a little more than 2 hours. I may have to take off in a little bit here. I got a message I need to follow up on. So I may have to take off just a little earlier than I anticipated. However, I am off work for the next 6 weeks, so I'm sure we'll be doing lots of streaming. So let's see here. So we have request, we have dump. So we're now dumping all these Netlink messages. Oh, fun employment. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I'm happy with it so far. Yeah, so here now we're seeing 10 different policies, it looks like. So if we specify this policy thing, we have command version. That should be, I believe, the identity of the family and then probably Netlink attributes. So if we start dumping these, let's see what we got going on here. I think basically if we can get the bare basics of this working today, I might call it a stream. Again, my apologies, but there will be plenty of other days. So we want to look at the data for this. So for each one, we're going to create an attribute decoder, which is under mdata, ad next, ad type. No, we have to check the error. So we're going to iterate all the attributes here. We're going to return an error, switch ad type. And then this is silly, but we're going to eventually have cases here as well. So spew.dump ad bytes. So ad the type and the bytes, right? Okay. No, we don't want to dump the messages anymore. So yeah, there we go. So we have 181818. Okay, so it looks like attribute 1 is a uint16 of some sort. Attribute 8 looks like probably more nested attributes because there's this variable length sort of thing. So we have some kind of uint16 here. Uint16, 2 bytes. So attribute 1, attribute 8. So it would be the policy attributes, whichever is associated with those. So attribute 1, attribute 8. Sorry. Where does this live? The family ID, yep. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, exactly. That makes sense. So we have the family ID. That makes sense. The family ID and then the policy itself. So why does it return the family ID? Wouldn't it be the same as the one we passed in? Oh, no, it's not because we passed it by name. So, interesting. So, case Unix control atter family name or family ID. We'll pass the ID here. It's a uint16. And then for the default, this will be case 8. This will actually be our nested attributes most likely. I am guessing. So I guess first let's verify ID 30. GENL control list. Do we have an ID 30 in here? Does netdm 0x1e, is that 30 in hex? I think it might be, right? 0x1e hex to decimal. ID 30, yep, okay. Yeah, so we're actually verifying here that we're getting the associated policies for netdm, so that's cool. I don't exactly understand why it would return it with every message. I guess, this would be like a multi-part message, so you have like policies, in theory it's possible you could receive these separately. So I'm guessing what we get here is we get the ID of the family and then the policy nested attributes, which are probably going to be the ID of the attribute and then the actual policy for it. So this is going to be a nested data structure of some sort. So nested. My Netlink package makes this much easier because you can just take these things apart without having to do all the byte math and stuff. So we're going to need another nested iterator here. And then we're going to go ahead and just dump everything as well. So you dump the type and the bytes. See what's in the nested iterator. Return nil. Hey, there we go. I was right. So yeah, so we're getting 0, 0, 0. Hang on. So let's get rid of any unnecessary output really quick. Are we just spewing here? It would appear so. 0, 0. So within the nested attributes, we have 0, we have 6, we have 8. 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 0. Huh. So that's a variety of different attributes. So is there a policy unspec dump? Yeah, so this is still going to be encoded with these constants a little bit. So we're starting to get there. Unspecified. So 0. Hang on. Oh, you know what? This is probably the individual operations for netdm, I'm guessing at this point, because netdm has a few different get policy, genl control policy. Hang on. What was that command? GNL policy control policy get netdm. I already forgot the command. GNL control help policy name netdm. Yeah, so ID 30. Okay, yeah, so it looks like, we're seeing it line up now. So we have 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. These are all individual messages, and we're actually parsing those as well. Op2 policies, op3 policies, op4, 6, 8. And then some kind of probably other nested data structure as well. So, Well, we're getting somewhere, but yeah, as mentioned, I apologize. I think I've got to run for today. We will definitely continue with this. I think that we're starting to get there a little bit, and I promise I won't do this off stream. So yeah, thank you all for hanging out. It's been a little more than 2 hours today. This has been great being back. I appreciate all the support. I will certainly be back. Maybe we'll do another stream tomorrow. I'm definitely want to hit the gym, do some more chores and such, but I might do another stream tomorrow, or if not, definitely another day this week. So. All right. Yeah, thank you all for hanging out. I appreciate it. And take care. Have a nice day. Bye now.